Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Football Pandemic, where we are excited to jump into football again for the year. Going to be talking about big news headlines from the year. We're going to look at the AFC, every division. We're going to talk about what personnel changes have happened and more here on the Football Pandemic. Josh, we are here starting a year, the two of us. We just some scheduling stuff. We almost had Brandon in, then I had to change dates, which got on a busy day for him. And we almost had Josh Haupt in, but then that didn't work out. But you know what? We're here. And we are today not only going to look back at like whatever has happened since the draft. Was that the last time we talked, just after the draft?
It would have been the draft and the schedule release, I believe.
Did we talk about the schedule release?
We did, yeah. We all kind of predicted each other's teams, like based on first look, what each record would be. But, but it was a long time ago. It was many,
I don't even remember that episode. That's how long it's been. But we're going to talk about all the news that is still of note from that time to now. I mean, the big stuff, not everything. And then we're going to jump in and talk about the AFC today. We're going to talk about the NFC, going to do a preview of them next week when Brandon can be on, since he is an NFC guy along with yourself. Want to have both of those viewpoints. But today, AFC. But before we get to that, as always, let's hit some of our big news headlines. And we're just going to be kind of pulling them from what we can remember out of the air. You might have a good list. But let's talk about some of that stuff. I'm going to start, and I'm going to start with the one that for some reason just kind of stays in my head. And this only happened like a week or two ago. But I think it was a preseason game. The longest field goal, a 70-yard field goal.
Yep. And 7.
That's like, crazy.
I remember when Sebastian Janikowski attempted a 76-yarder for the Raiders, like in one of his first couple seasons in the league. Former first-round pick, Sebastian Janikowski, by the way. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was at the end of the half. It was nowhere close. But now we're getting a little bit closer to that with the 70-yard field goal. I already forgot the name of the guy that kicked it, but I'm sure if he didn't have the spot already won, then he's
was
this
gonna be Jaguars? Was this the Jags? I don't know why I was thinking it was the Jags.
It might be. I think it was. Yeah, Cam Little is his name for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yep.
Yeah.
So not a little leg. He's got a big leg, and I mean, you know, you can talk about preseason stuff where it's like, oh, you know, my quarterback, my third string quarterback threw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns in a half of football or whatever. But it's like, okay, well, that's against, you know, third and fourth string guys that aren't necessarily showing their most exquisite, intricate defenses. But a field goal outside of, you know, the pressure level, maybe your heart racing a little bit more in a regular season game than in a preseason game, like, most everything is the same as it would be in the regular season. You don't have multiple long snappers, multiple holders that are going to be different, you know, and there's not like a first team guy that can jump 20 feet in the air to block a field goal that you don't have to worry about in the preseason. Like it's as close to whatever as you can. It's as close to the control as you can get. So 70 yards. I mean, that should be the new NFL record. I don't care if it happened in the preseason. That is.
No. That's the thing. They're amazing. Like, it's the officially unofficial, and I get the game time, maybe the heart rate, the clutchness of it, but 70 yards. It was like, it was right in it. It wasn't like on the very edge or anything like that. And yeah, so that was our first piece of news. not necessarily the biggest piece of news, but still pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yep. I don't want him to do that during the regular season against the Colts, but we'll see. We'll see. That might be their leading. Well, that will probably be their leading scorer. Kickers usually are.
Yeah.
but what other news? What news has happened this summer?
Well, a big one for the Los Angeles Chargers is their stalwart left tackle Rashawn Slater is out for the season. I wasn't sure if it was a torn ACL or an Achilles tendon. I know both of those are like the big injuries right now, but he's out for the season. He's been great for them. they're going to move Joe Alt from right tackle to left tackle. And Joe Alt was really good for them last year. Like, their offensive line had problems, especially against the Texans, but it was mostly the interior of that offensive line, not those two guys on the outside ends. So I think Joe Alt can handle it. That's where he played at Notre Dame. It was on the left side, so it's not like the footwork is going to be unfamiliar to him. But now that just means that somebody else is going to have, that you don't know if you can trust, and certainly can't trust as much as Rashawn Slater, is going to have to fill in now on that right side.
And didn't Rashawn just sign like a huge contract, making him the highest paid offensive tackle in the NFL?
I believe it was a couple weeks before the injury, so he got in. It was some pretty good timing on his part. So it's going to certainly be a hit to that Chargers offense that likes to run the ball and had a hard time protecting Justin Herbert against good defensive lines last year.
Yeah, that's a big one. There were a couple other big extensions that happened, extensions and signings. What were I trying to remember? There was
one guy who hasn't signed is Trey Hendrickson. He
has not.
He's still waiting for his contract. When training camp first started, he spent the first few days of it in Florida on vacation and like posted photos on his Instagram so that everybody knew that he was out there and not with the team. He eventually did come back to the team. He hasn't practiced with the team. It's been kind of one of those hold-in situations. So the Bengals, who spent a lot of money on T. Higgins, spent a lot of money on Jamar Chase. I don't know how much money they have for Trey Hendrickson. Right. I don't know if you can work some like cap magic there if you're their general manager, but he's a big part to their defense that was bad last year. And if they don't have him,
he was like the bright spot in a very bad defense. And then it's like, well, he's not going to be here. So, but everything's okay. Relax.
And yeah, so they're in a little bit of trouble right now. They did get Shamar Stewart signed finally,
right? So, which was their number 1 draft pick, right?
Yes, yep. He was their first rounder, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that defense does. They invested a lot on offense. They did not invest too much on defense. So looking forward. James Cook, the running back for the Buffalo Bills, did sign his extension after a brief hold out and hold in. He had kind of been talking about that throughout the offseason. He was able to get an extension there.
And that's good for them because he's a solid running back on a team that has a high-powered offense, which I don't know what's even going on with their wide receiver core right now. They let Stephon Diggs go, right? He's New England Patriot now.
Stephon Diggs is with the New England Patriots. Yeah. So
that's a guy you used to follow a lot more, right? Back when he was a Viking.
He was a fun guy to watch. But he's going to be Drake May's top weapon, I suppose. But yeah, James Cook is really like the only Pro Bowl caliber player that Josh Allen has to throw to on that Bills offense now. And I mean, I think the other guys, it's Keon Coleman, who was a rookie last year, had a lot of drops. He's not like a guy that gets open on his routes, but he's a guy that you can trust to throw up one-on-one balls to. Other than that, there's not like a whole lot of, Khalil Shakir, but again, that's not like your prototypical X wide receiver that's going to be on the outside, getting like open deep down the field. He can run shorter routes and get open over the middle and then get yards after catch. So they're going to have to make a lot of that work this season, but they were able to make it work last year when Diggs was with Houston.
Yeah. And speaking of Houston, they had a signing, right? Cornerback Stingley.
Yes,
Stingley extension there. Yeah,
signed his extension as my
got some help there.
I do have some help.
I usually have that sort of thing.
But yeah, Derek Stingley doing a real has been one of the best corners in the NFL since he came into the league as a top 10 draft pick during, I think, the 2021 draft. But he gets a big extension. So a lot of those guys in the 2021 and 2022 are getting their extensions or, holding out for their extensions as we go forward and head into the regular season. Terry McLaurin is a wide receiver, earlier than those guys, but his contract, he's looking for some more money, and he's been holding in. I know Josh Haupt hasn't been happy with all of that.
She believes in Terry McLaurin.
She believes in Terry McLaurin. That's right. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna mute myself for a quick second. But if you want to talk a little bit about as we go forward, some of the Colts news that we had that just broke a couple of days ago.
Well, that's unfortunate and not something that I really am excited to talk about. I'll pull that off for a second there. Yeah, we got with the Colts, the big news has been, well, we'll probably talk about this when we get into the AFC overall. When we're going to go through today the AFC North, East, South, and West. And when we hit that AFC South, I'll put that back up there. When we hit that AFC South, I'm going to talk more about this whole Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson thing. That has not been. Well, I'm just going to save that. I'm going to save. So the news, the headline is, I think it was just yesterday, Shane Steichen comes out and says, we have named Daniel Jones our starter. And I'm going to tell you, Colts football, Reddit, and comment sections are just all in a tizzy right now. And most of it is along, and you get a few people who are like, well, that's the right choice. Daniel Jones is the safe pick and gives us. I don't get that. First of all, Daniel Jones has not been great. I'm getting into
he's had a safe pick.
I'm getting into our AFC South stuff here. But what I will say is they needed to this year put Anthony Richardson in and let it happen however it happens. And then you're getting rid of him or he's going to be the man. This letting somebody else start is not what you do with your quarterback in the third year, still trying to figure out who he is. We need, if they do that, if Daniel Jones starts this whole year, I guess we have decided already Anthony Richardson is gone. And I know people are already talking tank for Manning. First of all, Manning did come out and negate what his grandfather, I guess Arch is his grandfather now.
Yeah.
Arch Manning said, yeah, he's going back to Texas, 100%. He's going to be there. And then he came out and said, yeah, I don't know where he got that. My grandfather texted me and apologized for saying that. Blah blah blah. We're taking it day by day. So there's a chance he could still come out. He's probably just like looking to see who's going to be in that pole position and what's his situation at Texas looking like. And Texas, right?
Yeah, and even if Arch Manning doesn't come out, there are a lot of better than this year's class. There are a lot of quarterbacks that could be available in that upper spot. Which, if Daniel Jones is your quarterback for the rest of the season, you might be in that upper spot. I know Anthony Richardson's agent is now like publicly questioning Richardson's future with the Indianapolis Colts going forward. So it's a tough thing to do if you're the Indianapolis Colts in that situation. That was Shane Steichen's first draft pick. It was his hand-picked guy was Anthony Richardson. He was the head coach, and he wanted him.
And I'm not gonna lie, like I was a big fan of Shane Steichen coming in. That hire, I thought this is awesome. I love who this guy is going to be, but he has pretty much mishandled this quarterback situation at every turn. Every choice he's made has felt like the wrong choice, and he hasn't felt like he brings the fire or has the locker room behind him all the time. I am more and more, for a long time I was a big Ballard fan. And I'm like, yeah, I know everything hasn't worked out, but Ballard, he drafts well. Now, yeah, he doesn't do great in free agency, and yeah, he doesn't get certain positions very well. But I do believe I have been swayed, and I am ready for a full clean house. If this year goes like I feel like it's going to go, I'm ready to and I know this is going to mean years of not being good still, but what are we now? What have we been since Phillip Rivers,
Phillip Rivers got you. Yeah.
Since then, we've been in this just perpetual state of mediocrity and hate. And so I'm ready for Ballard to be gone, Steichen to be gone, quarterback, both of these quarterbacks to be gone, start all over. But Sometimes you wish for that just because you're tired of what you got, and that doesn't mean you're going to get something better. But anyway, that's all still for the AFC South. But the big news here, the big news was starter has been named, and it's Daniel Jones, and I don't think anybody in the world is excited about that. Except maybe Shane Steichen, and I don't think he's excited about it. I think he kept saying the word consistency. I think what you got is a guy who's trying desperately to somehow keep his job, and he's thinking, if I put in Daniel Jones, then the play of the team, which here's the crazy thing is that the team has a lot of good pieces. We have a lot of good pieces on offense,
Everything
a lot of
but
good
the
pieces
quarterback,
on
basically.
everything but the quarterback. And so I think Shane is thinking, this is where I earn my money as the coach. And Daniel Jones is the kind of guy who will do what I tell him to do. And so if it looks good, it's because of me. It's because I schemed it. It's because I, got him in the position to win. Whereas Anthony Richardson is a little more of a wild card. He will do things that aren't necessarily what the coach told him to, more chance for him to lose his job.
Right.
So,
yeah. And Vikings adjacent news to this is that the Vikings are going to get a comp pick for Daniel Jones. And this could make it go from being a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick to a 4th or 3rd round pick, depending on how many snaps he gets. So selfishly, like as a Vikings fan, this is big news for me, but also as an Anthony Richardson truther, it's very disappointing.
well, yeah, I could be one of those people who halfway through game, 5 or 6, whatever, I start seeing, wow, this is working out better than I thought. Maybe I do have some hope for this year. But right now, my state of mind is this year's done. What's there to be excited about? Who's my NFC team that I'm going to root for? Because I just don't feel a lot of positive right now and the worst part is when you have expectations that are a certain level, and then the floor of this position that's so important drops out like this, regardless of all the other pieces you have in your mind, you slot yourself down there with the Browns and the Titans. That's my year right now. I'm going to be at the very bottom of the barrel with the Browns, the Titans, and the Dolphins, which I feel like are all going to be junk this year.
Well, at least the Titans at least have something to look forward to with Cam Ward. They can watch.
They have excitement, but
quarterback, but
everything's new and changing. I doubt it's going to turn total upswing in one year, but they do have something to be excited about. Whether that translates to wins or not. Well, again, that's AFC South. What other headlines do we have before we hit that?
Well, I mean, I think one that is kind of more off the field was the whole controversy with the NFLPA that has kind of been happening vaguely during this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Where
is that the Raiders?
So it's this the upcoming thing is that there's going to be a collective bargaining agreement at the end of the 2026 season that they need to try to that the NFL and the NFLPA need to come to an agreement on if they're going to continue to have football for that year, or else, I mean, we've had kind of lock-ins before. Like in 2011, we had a training camp started way later because they couldn't come to an agreement for a while. But the NFLPA's leadership is kind of all over the place right now. And it starts with J.C. Treader, the former Browns, former Packers offensive lineman, who was the president of the NFLPA, at least the player portion of it. When he got cut by the Browns and didn't have a job, you need to be a player to be in leadership there. Outside of the main president of it. So he couldn't do that anymore. So he basically, in a Game of Thrones-esque plot, gets his own guy that's going to make that he gets him, he pushes for him to be the next president. And this is a guy that has a lot of conflict of interest. Lloyd Howell is his name. And he has run a couple of things, financial institutions, one of which was kind of wrought with fraud and was the subject of a whistleblower. And he also happens to be a part of one of these investment firms that is eligible to buy a football. Like now that they're letting these investment firms, private equity, become owners, he would be eligible to also be an owner. And so there's a lot of conflict of interest with all of that. And J.C. Treader did that because of his relationship with Lloyd Howell. And Lloyd Howell essentially made a whole new role within the NFLPA specifically for JC Treader. And JC Treader was basically the one pulling the strings, with Lloyd Howell just kind of as the face there. And through all of this, some news that would have been good for the NFLPA, which such as the fact that when they were talking about the guaranteed contracts, the collusion accusations, they ended up not coming to anything and not releasing publicly the files from the depositions there, because JC Treader had text messages about Russell Wilson and what he because Russell Wilson didn't take a fully guaranteed contract, and he called Russell Wilson a loser and insults and more crude words as well. And he didn't want that released. So they did their best to hide that, even though it showed that, yes, there was at least some collusion, or at least an effort to collude on the owner's parts. Not enough to warrant a severe punishment, but there was an effort there in order to tamp down on fully guaranteed contracts, even for your top players. JC Treader does not release that until the summer, when Pablo Torre of Pablo Torre Finds Out, another podcast, he finally gets his hands on it, going through the legal system, and releases it publicly. And this, begins this avalanche, this snowball of events, where now Lloyd Howell, after they dug into his past and they saw, oh wait, this guy could be an NFL owner someday, he can't be president, so he resigns. JC Treader, with all of his stuff, he was next in line to be the takeover for Lloyd Howell. But with all of this, he said a week before he resigned, he said, we'll let the truth come out in all of this, we'll let the facts speak for themselves, and then he resigns a week later. So it has been just a very interesting debacle. Their new guy is David White, their new president, who was the other person in the voting against Lloyd Howell in a voting process that was much different than any other NFLPA president had been elected before, where previously everyone voting for the NFLPA president needed to know 30 days ahead of time, and there were multiple candidates that they would vet. They were given 24 hours notice about who the two candidates were going to be, and that was it. So a process that was kind of thrown out the window for JC Treader to get Lloyd Howell up there. And the second guy used to be the head of the SAG-AFTRA Guild, and he had covered up or tried to censor a documentary about child actors in Hollywood being abused in their careers, and this being a kind of a pattern of events that was happening in Hollywood, even though for David White, as a SAG-AFTRA guy, those child actors and other actors would be the people he's supposed to protect. So even now, the NFLPA's leadership, even with Lloyd Howell ousted and JC Treader ousted, they have another guy that has proven that he cannot accurately represent the interests of his clients. And this is right before the NFLPA and NFL are going to go head to head with the new collective bargaining agreement, and the NFL has got to be just licking its chops.
I was going to say, I bet Roger Goodell is just smiling and thinking, yeah, they think they're going to, it's, who was the guy that was there for the last negotiation? The head of the NFLPA, I forgot his name.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember
anyway
either.
He went in and, was talking about how they were going to be so tough. And when they came out of it, you could just see Roger Goodell smiling like a Cheshire cat, because he got everything that the NFL owners wanted, basically.
Yeah, it's like there's going to be an 18-game season now. They're not going to get fully guaranteed contracts into their this is stuff they could have fought for and could have had the leverage to win moving up into but now they're not going to get any of that. And I think it shows that the NFL Players Union, out of all of the four major sports, the NHL, the NBA, MLB, I think they by far have the weakest out of all. The MLB by far has the largest. They've prevented a salary cap from being put into their league, which has been huge. I mean, that gives them unlimited earning potential, and it's different in the NFL now.
Right. So all of that, and I thought what you were going to be talking about was the Christian Wilkin Raiders grievance. So like they basically took away 35.2 million in guaranteed money, saying he did something in his foot rehab that was not right. And so this is like a big deal in the from the NFLPA versus the NFL, and it just plays into all of this stuff that's going on with the bargaining agreement that's coming up.
Yeah, it's and with Christian Wilkins, like there's some stuff like he was like he kissed a teammate on the forehead and the teammate took it the wrong way, and like so now there's all of that too. Like I would love to have Christian Wilkins on the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, right now, like we've got some pretty good defensive tackles with Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. So like I'm all for that, but the Vikings, when Wilkins became a free agent heading into the 2024 season, were that was their main goal. And when he signed with the Raiders, they kind of had to pivot. So I mean, I would take him, but yeah, I don't know how that fight is going to go between him and the Las Vegas Raiders. If he's going to, I mean, he's already made a lot of money for only playing in 4 games, so I'm not overly concerned for his financial well-being moving forward. But it's still, I mean, it could set precedent for I mean, if I'm a team and I see, I can cut him and, I can even fabricate a story, something like that. Like, I'm not saying that Christian Wilkins' story was fabricated about him kissing a teammate on the head, or fabricated about like him not doing the injury rehab exactly the way that the Raiders wanted. But I'm a team. I could put out those whispers to my reporters, or to the beat reporters of the team that covers me, and get more leverage against these players to again, not now even pay out some of these guaranteed contracts. And again, that's why you need a strong NFL players union. And right now, there is not a strong NFL player union.
So that's something to keep an eye on as we head to those negotiations. Are there any more big news headlines before we start jumping into the AFC South and talking about some of the personnel stuff that happened with each of those teams? Anything else?
I'm sure there is, but I not any more that I can think of off the top of my head.
Right. And we may come up with some in the middle of this as we're going, but we're going to go ahead and jump into this. We're going to do a preview kind of the AFC South. We're not doing wins and losses for the season yet, just after 2 preseason games, but we are going to talk about like each team, like big changes in personnel that might be worth keeping an eye on, and then kind of how we think the divisions will play out. So as far as like who's going to win that division to second, third, and fourth for each division as we go around the AFC South. And then we may talk about like overall who we think are at the top and the bottom of the AFC as a total. But let's start with, I always seem to start this way. We're going to start with the AFC East. So this is the Bills, Patriots, Jets, and Dolphins. As we look at this, let's obviously, well, I guess it's not always obvious to everyone, but to me, I think to most of the football world right now, the Bills are definitely the powerhouse in that division, have been for the last few years. I expect that will continue. And so we'll start with the Bills. The big thing with the Bills is it doesn't feel like there's been a lot of change. Feels like they didn't really address, they didn't bring anybody big in, unless I'm, except for maybe that running back extension, but
yeah, for the Bills, it's kind of status quo stays the same. They did get rid of Von Miller, but they replaced him with another former all-pro top pass rusher with Joey Bosa. So they brought in Joey Bosa. Bosa's been injured a little bit.
Yeah.
They lose Rasul Douglas, who is a really good cornerback for them, and Brandon remembers him from his time with the Packers as well. But other than that, yeah, the team is mostly the same. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. They were able to sign Josh Allen to an even larger extension during the offseason, or they restructured his contract and gave him a few more years and a lot more guaranteed money. So, I mean, your quarterback is locked down right there. He's proven that he doesn't need a number one guy like Stephon Diggs to make the offense run, like we mentioned earlier. So you don't have to do a whole lot on the offensive side of the football. And for their defensive back room, they spent their first round pick. They spent some equity on a cornerback, and they get Maxwell Hairston Jr., who was not my favorite guy heading out of the combine, not because he's not necessarily a good coverage guy, but because he looks on tape like he's 5'5" and 110 pounds. And I'm not sure, like, he's not that, but that's just how he looks. And I'm not sure if he's ever going to be able to tackle anybody or win those contested catch situations. But I mean, his technique and everything is good. So, as long as, he's covering his receiver and doesn't allow him to catch the ball and doesn't have to tackle him, they're going to be in good shape there.
That's McDermott, the coach there, right?
Yeah, Sean McDermott.
I believe he just had some strong words in a preseason game where they lost 38-0 to the Bears.
Yeah, they lost 38-0. And I mean, I guess the strong words is because you want to like rile these guys up, the depth guys up, because nobody from the Buffalo Bills starting unit on defense or offense was playing in that game.
I think he just wants to see, do my depth pieces even have any ability to stop a team? Because I'm sure the Bears didn't have their first line out there the whole time. Now they probably did at the beginning. Caleb Williams played the first set, whatever. But you would hope that somewhere in there your team would get a kick, a field goal or something, so that it's not 38-0. And you want to see that your defense could stop something, because again, that wasn't the first stringers out there the whole time for the Bears. So yeah, I bet he's like, come on guys, I know you're not the starters, but you got to show me something.
And he probably also had some HBO Max producer in his ear saying, we're not doing a great job ratings wise this year with our Hard Knocks training camp. It would be great if you can provide a moment for us to kind of like highlight in our next episode.
Not gonna lie, I haven't even watched any of that. Have you?
I have not seen a Hard Knocks since, maybe the Raiders with John Gruden, and like I became a big Darren Waller guy because of that. But I think that was the last time I watched. I tried to watch the Chargers Rams, and like it just is. It's mostly the same thing every single year. Like when you've watched one season, it's like I had a Bachelor phase. My wife Jessie and we had a Bachelor phase where we watched The Bachelor, The Bachelorette.
Oh, I thought you were going to say when you were a bachelor, you had a phase where you watched everything.
Sorry. No, the television show, the Bachelor franchise, I should clarify, where, we watched a couple of seasons. Like the first season, it was like really intriguing and like all this drama. And then the second season, it's like, oh, there's the same drama. These are different people now, but like he's just this guy right here is just that guy from the other season. So it was like once you've seen it once, you've seen them all.
Unless it's your team, like when your team, you're like, oh, what little tidbit can I watch and see about their personalities or whatever? But you're right. Otherwise, it feels very similar. Now you have those years where like, was it Miami when they like let Vontae Davis go like on air, which was horrible. By the way, we got Vontae Davis, and I enjoyed him as a player. He was a good player.
Yeah. So yeah, they used to film the cuts, and I'm not sure they do it as much now. But like, Kevin O'Connell was was with the Jets when they were there, and he got cut by the Jets, and it was kind of like it was just this like in and out thing, and it kind of, I mean, it was cool to like see just like, okay, it's like, the how quickly they do it, how direct and how straight they are, but it's also like, oh, this is a really cold, harsh world where now like Kevin O'Connell, after that, like he was expected to be the Jets backup of the future, and I don't know if he had a quarterback. I mean, he's done well for himself since then, but he didn't have a job in the NFL. And I mean, these are guys' dreams who we purposely, like, we're following not the stars. Typically we're following these on the bubble guys, or even guys that probably aren't going to make the team, but have good stories and have good promise. And it's definitely sad to see when those guys get cut. They don't do that anymore. Or at least
probably because of the backlash of that Vontae Davis. I mean, everybody just like, they were so upset with the way that was like shared. such a person. And he's like, I want to call my grandma, and like everybody's like, oh, you can't do this to this guy.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So Bills, not a lot of changes. And I still expect them to be the number one in that division. But then after that is where things get a little more messy. I'm going to just quickly tell you. Well, I guess we can talk about each one, but I'm going to quickly tell you what order I think they're going to fall in, and then you can disagree with that as we go. But I think this is the year where the Patriots kind of come back up and hit that number 2 spot. And then I have no idea what's going to happen with the Jets or the Dolphins. I don't expect great things out of either, but surprisingly, in my head, I feel like even the lowly Jets, they got what's his name from Detroit's coaching staff.
Aaron Glenn, yeah.
Aaron Glenn. I can always only think of Ben Johnson. They got Aaron Glenn, and they got Justin Fields in there, and they've got some. I think they made an extension for Sauce Gardner. Did they sign him?
Yeah, both Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, who are both part of the same draft class. So they got both of those guys locked down for the long-term future. I think the Jets are really interesting from the sense that the offense that they run this year might be more akin to what we see in college, and that might be for the better in their specific case. They bring in Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn brings in Ben Johnson's basically number 2 guy as his offensive coordinator, Tanner Engstrand. They loved to run outside zone in Detroit. Like, they ran outside zone almost more than any other team in the NFL. Like, we think of the Detroit, because of all their trick plays, as this very like creative offensive team, and they were in the ways that they would get to the outside zone. But when it came to just a simple concept, it wasn't as intricate as you'd think. It wasn't as diverse. It was outside zone, but we'll motion this guy. Outside zone, but we have a bunch of different gaps. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. They drafted Armand Membu from Mizzou, who, when I watched him, was the top outside zone tackler. Like, because you need athletic guys to be able to beat a guy to the outside that is already out leveraged you to the outside just based on where his lineman is. You need to beat that guy to the outside and be able to turn yourself and wall him off on a reach block. So Armand Membu is able to do that. And when you run outside zone in Detroit, you can't really do a read zone option because you have Jared Goff as your quarterback. When you run the outside zone in New York, you have perhaps the best running quarterback, one of the best running quarterbacks in the league, just at running the football, in Justin Fields. So if that defensive end on the opposite side, on the backside of the play, crashes in right away, Justin Fields is going off in the other direction. And what Oregon used to do at the college, when they had Justin Herbert back in like the early 2020s, they would do a pop pass off of that with a tight end. So you could either do the outside zone. Fields could give it off to Braylon Allen or to Breece Hall, both of who are excellent running backs. He could see that the defensive lineman crashes in and take it himself, like we've already mentioned. Or if he sees all the defense flowing towards where the play is going, you have a tight end on the backside of the line who just runs like a little seam route or just curls 10 yards downfield, and he's wide open because all of the defense has followed the ball carrier because they know you're running outside zone so much, and because outside zone is it's like a well-paced play. Like it's kind of like everybody's waiting for the holes to open up. So everybody's flowing to the same spot. Everybody's going to the same spot each time. It's just who wins on the offensive line. But if you get a tight end that can, leak out and become uncovered, you have that as well. And Justin Fields is, as a quarterback, the issue isn't his arm strength or his arm accuracy even. It's his ability to read the defense. If you give him that one read, then he can be on time and he can look a lot better than he has with Pittsburgh or with Chicago throwing the football, even though it hasn't really materialized a whole lot throwing wise in camp so far. I think the Jets are interesting. I think they could become a team that's right around the 500 level. I agree with you about the Patriots. I think they're going to take a step forward. Will Campbell is on their offensive line now. It's revamped a little bit. Drake May made a lot of things work with not a lot of pieces last year. They get Stephon Diggs. They get Mac Hollins from Buffalo, who was like a good number 3, number 4 guy. And they also get one of my favorite running backs from the draft and Trevion Henderson. So I think that offense is good. They Christian Barmore had his blood clot last year and he missed most of the season. He's back and healthy, according to all reports coming out of Patriots camp. And they brought in Milton Williams, who made a name for himself with the Eagles during their playoff run last year. So that defense looks really good. I mean, Christian Gonzalez might be the best cornerback in the NFL. I think the Patriots, they might even like challenge. I would say the Bills are still going to win this, but the Patriots might get in between a game or two of the Bills. And like at the last week of the season, the Bills might not be able to rest their starters because they might not have the division completely on lockdown just yet. And I think the Patriots could be a sneaky wild card team.
Yeah,
the Dolphins.
I do feel like Patriots will be a wild card team. I guess we could talk about that when we get done with all the divisions, who are going to be the wild cards. But I will spoiler, I think they will be. But yeah, go on, because this is the team, the Miami Dolphins. You're getting ready to start here. It's the team that I have the least faith in this division. They are who I think will be in fourth place. I know it depends on the Jets, like kind of capitalizing on these things you were talking about, because they very well could look like they might have promise and then just fall flat. We've seen the Jets do that over and over and over and over. And we hope, for Jets Nation at least, that they can start to have something to be excited about that's longer than four snaps, whatever they were when Aaron Rodgers, when the hype was through the roof. This is not the hype through the roof. I do think they might be able to move up to third. But what do you think about these Dolphins?
The Dolphins, I mean, they are interesting because when they had their pieces all healthy last year, which was the end of the last season, I think they finished the year 5-2. And they were still clamoring for a playoff spot despite a really rocky start. But they have lost a lot. Maybe a piece of news that I'm not sure if we hit earlier in the offseason, but Minkah Fitzpatrick is now back with the Dolphins, and the Jalen Ramsey was traded to the Steelers.
Yeah.
So they get a new safety there, but their cornerback room is not great. Like Cam Dantzler, who used to be a Vikings starting cornerback during when they were one of the worst pass defenses of the decade. He's older and he's now one of their top cornerbacks, now one of Miami's top cornerbacks. Storm Duck has a good name. I don't know if he's a good cornerback. Then sure, they have Kenneth Grant. They brought him in on the defensive line for Miami. But I don't know if that's enough for the defense. I don't think the defense is going to be very good. And the offense took a significant step back, even when they were really good, when it came to running the football last year. Like they weren't getting these big plays that they typically had gotten, and they weren't converting in short yardage situations. So it put a lot more on Tua's plate. And, every year it's a question as to, especially with the concussions that he continues to suffer, it becomes a question of how long will he stay healthy? How long will he play? Will he, go down safely and not take those unnecessary hits? Like he has said in the past that he would go down, and then he, like last year against the Bills, he doesn't go down and he suffers a concussion. So I don't trust him when he says that he will, because he's proven that we shouldn't trust him when he says that. That doesn't mean he's going to get a concussion, but it certainly heightens his odds for getting a concussion. And they have Quinn Ewers and I forget who they are, and Zach Wilson as their backup quarterbacks. So it's not like a ton to be excited about behind him. So I would put the Dolphins last place. I think they could get back to their old offensive ways, but I think you're expecting a lot of pieces to fall in place all at once in order for that to happen. And I think that's a lower probability. I think they have the lowest probability of those pieces falling into place, lower than the rest of their AFC East counterparts.
And what is the, I haven't been following, what's the story with Tyreek Hill? Is he still wanting out?
Yeah, so it is interesting. He had there's been some back and forth between him and Tua Tagovailoa, throughout the offseason, where Tua has straight up said, it's hard for me to trust him right now. He's earning his trust back, and some of that stuff. So there's some candidness out there. There's some hard honesty that you usually typically don't see, even when there is some controversy going on between quarterback and wide receiver. He hasn't been practicing recently. Today, apparently, he didn't practice, but had his helmet on. Like he purposely sat out of practice, but had his helmet on and was catching passes on the sideline. So like it's up and down with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And a report today did come out saying that the Vikings are being very active on the veteran wide receiver trade market. So I don't know if that means Tyreek Hill, but there are teams that would be interested in trading for some of those wide receivers. And if Tyreek Hill's disgruntled, like he kind of took a step back last year, and like I'm not sure that he can be a reliable option for Miami this season. So that means Jalen Waddle, who I think is a perennial number 2 guy, but I don't think he can ever be that number 1 guy in a really good offense. He would have to take that mantle, and I'm not sure that would bode well for Miami Dolphins fans.
And as a way too early bold prediction, and I guess we'll probably have something where we make bold predictions. My bold prediction is that at the end of this year, it's likely that what's his name, Mike
McDaniel, yeah,
Mike McDaniel's done. I don't know if that's really that bold, but I think it could be, you know, the experiment could be over if they have a bad year and come in 4th in the division, like I'm guessing they will. Let's move to the AFC South. Okay, this is one that's close to home. I will say this. I'll start off by saying I do believe the Texans will be number 1 again. I think their quarterback and their coach, they were like the story, right? The Cinderella story of we're last place, nobody expects anything, and then we win the division and, you know, haven't looked back since. I think they're still the best in this division. It's unfortunate. I keep trying to think the Colts are. I keep trying to think they're making the step forward. But until you get that quarterback, that CJ Stroud was the same class as Anthony Richardson. Not to lie, CJ Stroud was the quarterback I wanted our team to get. Remember, there was all that confusion at the top, and they're like, oh, who's going to go first? Who's going to go second? Could AR move up to first? What would happen to CJ Stroud? His Wonderlic scores were so low. I was like, oh, please, please, please let him get the number 4. He did not. We took Anthony Richardson. I tried to be excited about that because I do believe Anthony Richardson has potential. We've talked about it over and over and over. CJ Stroud, though, has proven that he can do what he needs to in this league. And I think they are still the team to beat. I think looking in the division, as you go to 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I think the Jags are probably going to be 2nd in this division. They did take the unicorn, what's his name, Travis Hunter, who is dealing with a little bit of injury right now, trying to play both ways, both offense and defense. They say they're not worried about it. We'll see what that turns into. Will he actually play that much? Is this a concern? Because they moved up in the draft to take him number 2 overall.
Yeah, they gave up a lot. They traded with Cleveland and kind of mortgaged their future a little bit. But I mean, he is a guy that if he is healthy, I think is worth it. But yeah,
He's gotta stay healthy.
I mean, if you're doubling your snaps that you would typically play, you're doubling your injury risk. Yeah. You'd think, but at the same time, he's also done that throughout the course of his career and has kind of trained his body to do that. So maybe those percentages aren't necessarily commensurate, but I like the Jaguars to maybe come out in first place in this division.
They'll make that step?
I think they could. I think their offense is going to be explosive with assuming Travis Hunter stays healthy. And even he's played high-level Division I football both ways at Colorado and stayed healthy in his 2 full seasons there. I know the NFL is a little bit of a different dog, but he hasn't shown an injury proneness just yet. So, I mean, he and Brian Thomas Jr. are kind of 1A, 1B. They're not a number 1 and a number 2 guy. It's 2 number 1s that you have there on the outside for Trevor Lawrence, who still has the arm talent. And I mean, if Liam Cohen can fix Baker Mayfield, who was good, but I think is maybe a tier below just pure talent wise than where Trevor Lawrence would be if you stripped everything else away. Like if he can make Baker Mayfield a 40 touchdown a year passer, I have no doubt that with perhaps even better weapons,
that's hard to say too. Better weapons than what Baker Mayfield had in Tampa.
That's true.
But,
I mean,
yeah.
But they could be. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. was one of the best wide receivers in the league already last year. I think he was like 7th in receiving yards. And last year Baker didn't get to work with Chris Godwin for half of the season. And for some
Right.
of the game, like Mike Evans was out for 4 or 5 games as well. So, and Baker was still effective and productive in those games, and that offense was still rolling. I mean, I have some trust in Liam Cohen. Their defensive line is pretty good with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. Their defense, I think, would be more middle tier,
and we know they have a kicker that can kick 70-yard field goals.
That's true.
So.
You just need to get to midfield, and then you don't have to do a whole lot much more on offense in order to get points. Yeah, it's so you've got that in your bag as well. And the cornerbacks, Tyson Campbell didn't have a great year. He's been a decent guy for the Jaguars, and then Travis Hunter, assuming they play kind of more of a zone-centric sort of defense. He wasn't great in man-to-man when he was with Colorado, but he was very good on those deep zones and those cover 3 sort of sets. So if they do that a lot more, one, that's less strain, that's less less energy that he has to expound on the defensive side of the football while still being an effective player over there. So they can make this work. I'm not going to definitively say that they will win the AFC South, because you're right. I do think the Houston Texans, that defense is just incredible. And when you have Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson coming off on opposite sides, you don't need to blitz at all, because one of those guys is going to be one-on-one in every situation, and they're going to win those one-on-ones more often than not. Not to mention, Danico Autry as a defensive tackle is also a pretty good pass rusher and run stopper. And it's kind of more unheralded. So you can drop 7 guys back in coverage, and it helps when 2 of those guys are Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley, who I believe last year, had among playoff teams among playoff teams, but during the regular season, the stat is for. So among the 14 playoff teams during the regular season, those 2 had given up the lowest passer rating of any cornerbacks in man-to-man coverage. Mm-hmm. They were 1A and 1B. So now you have those 2 guys locking down 2 receivers. You might have to bring in some extra protection if you're a team going up against the Houston Texans, just to chip on Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. So that's fewer receivers that now you have 5 guys to cover if you're Houston. So they might have to only bracket 2 other players or 1 other player outside of the guys that Stingley and Lassiter are taking on one-on-one. You don't have to be super creative defensively, even though
D'Amico is a defensive coach.
Yeah, and he can be creative if they need it, if the situation warrants it. But your scheme can be pretty simple, and you can still win a lot of games just on the back of your defense alone. They didn't do a lot to address the offensive line, so I think that is going to a little bit of an issue still for.
And that was the one thing that sometimes he was CJ Stroud was rushed. So
yes, there is that. In fact, they might have made it worse when they sent away Laramie Tunsil. So I'm not sure who they're going to have protect CJ Stroud, but at the very least, you have a very talented quarterback with a very talented receiving core and one of the best defenses in terms of just pure personnel in the NFL. So I think even if the Jaguars were to get the upper hand on Houston, I still think this is a Houston team that is still in its Super Bowl window.
Yeah. And so I think you're right. I think the Jags could push them. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think Texans, but I wouldn't be surprised. But then you got the other half of this division. And I was saying before, if the Colts had a quarterback, their pieces, all the rest of the pieces look pretty good. And they just signed Xavier Howard, right? Which I know he's a little older now.
They did,
but he's had a good career. And new tight end who's looking really good. Our receivers, I never did like A.D. Mitchell, or I haven't liked A.D. Mitchell since he's been playing because he just drops too much. He doesn't. But, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., and Josh Downs, love those guys as receivers. Love this tight end now. One of our 7 tight ends that we have right now. Those will not all make it to the regular season. But and then, our cornerbacks, we got Cam Ward and Shavarius Ward and Cam Bynum, and we got Kenny Moore as long as his injury wasn't too bad. Like I said, Xavier Howard back there. We've got a team with a lot of pieces that I like, and our kicker, looked like solid during so far, and has got himself in the right place. All this to say, the one position that matters, we are just a mess, and it makes I was saying this earlier, what makes me feel like we're going to be in the very bottom of the league. But then I put myself against the Tennessee Titans, and I know they just got a new quarterback, number 1 overall, and that can make a difference. And there's some excitement that's going to be there. And they've probably made some other moves that I haven't been paying too much attention to. I think it's going to take time for them to get together. I still think they're not going to be great this year. And so my initial reaction is Colts are going to come in fourth. But then I look at all those pieces, and I look at Daniel Jones' little dinking and dunking, and I get the fear that I'm not even going to get that. And you say, what, Matthew? You're not going to get fourth? Well, obviously, if we're junk, we want a good high draft pick because this is not a sustainable model we have going here. What's likely going to happen, though, is we're going to get 5 to 8 wins, and we're going to end up somewhere in the middle, 12th overall pick, somewhere where we can't move up high enough to get the quarterback we want. And we're going to end up in Junkville when it comes next year because we're playing that mediocrity game just straight through again. So my gut reaction was to say the Colts will come in last in this division this year because I have no faith in Daniel Jones. Never have liked Daniel Jones. Still don't like Daniel Jones. Can't even stand to look at his face. When they show his face and he's got those eyes are too close together and he just looks like befuddled. He just look, I don't know. It's like I saw a meme. I don't even know what this was from. The Sergeant Doofy or something. Somebody put, I don't even know who this guy is. They go, doesn't he look like his doppelganger? And he does. He just looks like this doppelganger for a guy named General Doofy or whatever, Sergeant Doofy. And I don't think he's like a very exciting prospect, and the Colts are trying everything to make us like, oh yeah, he's the consistent. I was talking about this earlier. People saying stuff like he's the safe pick. He was the second worst quarterback in rating last year, only second to Anthony Richardson. Oh, the life us Colts have to live. We got such a good team around it. I don't know how long it's going to last. And Quilton Nelson was just asked, are you frustrated? He's like, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. He specifically mentioned Patrick Mahomes. He's like, look at these teams where you have one quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, forever, and you can really get used to his style of play. And then there's us, a different starting quarterback every single year, since Andrew Luck retired.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's tough, and I think like I don't know if the weapons would be enough to get them competing for a playoff spot, but I agree that it would be one of those 5 to like maybe 9 at the highest. It
would have to be a real good year to get 9, I think.
And another one of the weapons that Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, if he ever comes, maybe he's just so disgruntled that it's Riley Leonard, the backup for Daniel Jones moving into the season. And in that case, he could have Coleman Owen, who is leading the Colts in preseason receptions this year.
I forgot. Yeah, it's your guy, Coleman Owens. How could I forget him? I haven't put him on my radar yet.
he's probably not going to make the team. He's probably going to make the practice squad if they want to try and get him through there. But he does lead the team in receptions so far this preseason, which
I feel like should make AD Mitchell stand up and take notice, because Mitchell like has all this like ability, but the problem is he won't catch the ball. He's like right there and he's kind of looking, then he looks away where he thinks he's going to go and he drops the ball, or he like totally stops early on his route and the ball goes over where he should have been. And you're like, oh, come on. I have been so frustrated with AD Mitchell.
Yeah.
Coleman will take his spot. I doubt it.
Yeah. I don't think so, but hey, if they cut him, maybe the Vikings, who need wide receivers wherever they can get them right now, because one of their guys is suspended. A bunch of their guys outside of Justin Jefferson are all injured, so they're like their number 5 and number 6 guys that they didn't even think were going to make the roster as their number 2 for the first quarter of the season. But the situation with the Indianapolis Colts is akin to the situation of one Daisy Buchanan in the great American novel, The Great Gatsby, where she is being pursued both by her one-time boyfriend, Jay Gatz, and she is married to a man named Tom, and he is an old money person, a very safe sort of guy, but he doesn't treat her well. He hurts her. He cheats on her. He's not great to her. Jay Gatsby was a poor boy who went to the military, tried to write back to Daisy, was never able to win her heart back, never made contact after fighting in World War I, but he makes himself into this new money person, this young money person. He becomes rich. He does everything to win her affection back, probably almost to a fault. And he finally puts himself back on her radar as he lives across the lake from her, across the bay from her, and he throws parties every weekend, and he makes his name so known that she can't not notice him. And he is the Anthony Richardson in this situation, and Tom is the Daniel Jones in this situation. She has a fling with Jay Gatsby in the book and in the movie, where he's played by Leonardo DiCaprio or Robert Redford, depending on when you were born. And it comes to a point where Tom finds out, and essentially Daisy has to choose between Tom, who treats her poorly, doesn't really love her, but at least is going to provide her with the high society status for the rest of her life, even if it's not something that she is going to go head over heels for, or the person that has pursued her and loves her, but has kind of gotten his money in some shady ways and doesn't offer as much security, and she would be looked at as more of a pariah by the rest of the high society. She chooses Tom, and she is pregnant, and she knows she's going to have a daughter, and she says, "I'm glad it's a girl. I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world, is a beautiful little fool." And the Indianapolis Colts are the beautiful little
the
fools.
fans, the beautiful little fools. The fans.
Well, so she knows that she's just going to be this trinket in high society. She's not going to be anything more than that moving forward as a woman in the 1920s America, and she knows that fate will await her daughter. She has resigned herself to that fact. The Indianapolis Colts have resigned themselves to the fact that they will never be more than a trinket as long as Daniel Jones is their quarterback. They will be nothing more but a blip on the NFL radar. They are, again, the beautiful little fools.
I will say this.
Jane Steichen specifically.
I will say this. A few plot holes here. I don't feel like Daniel Jones is safe. Will keep you in high society. But I understand the, less exciting pick. AR.
He will hurt you though. He will make you feel like he will not make you feel good about yourself.
As far as the pretty little fools, the nice thing is we have had the transition. This was something that happened over the summer. We may have talked a little bit about. Jim Irsay passed. His three daughters are now the owners. I don't know why. I keep getting these stories pop up at the top of my feed that say Peyton Manning has joined ownership with the Indianapolis Colts. Reggie Wayne has joined ownership, is now a co-owner. And I'm like, what? Those aren't real, right? I haven't seen that those are real anywhere, but for some reason I keep getting that Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne are now co-owners. And like, what kind of false news are they trying to peddle? Anyway, if somebody knows that they did, let me know. But these three girls, I do think this year is, due to when the transition happened, the train was running. But I think they're going to blow stuff up, and we're going to see something. These girls may not be the pretty little fools that she hoped her daughter would be in the Great Gatsby, because I do think they're looking to make, particularly. I'm trying to remember. Let's see. So Kaylin is the one that's doing like the Kick the Stigma and all the public relations. The Foyt one is, I forget what she's doing. Carly is the main, basically main owner, not the main owner, but the one in charge of football operations of the three girls. And I think she is going to really get in there like her dad did, but I think she's going to maybe make a little bit harder on coaches and GMs to stick around for a long time. And so I sense that at least the initial impression I get, they may clean some house and maybe make some good changes. Now, that's going to take some time down the road. Like I said, anytime you blow everything up, the next year is not like amazing. And so what's hard as a Colts fan is I'm looking at this as a lost year. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to take us to the promised land. I don't think AR is going to be given the opportunity to prove really if he could be the man or not. I think it's that whole, they're going to be pulling, I think AR is going to get some starts. I think Daniel Jones is going to play, and we're going to lose a couple. And then they're going to be like, oh, after game 3, look, he got injured somehow a little bit. So we're letting AR start. But then AR hasn't been playing with the first team, and he comes in, he'll have some ups and downs, but it's not going to be like winning a bunch of games. And then maybe at the end of the year, they're going to pull and put Daniel Jones back in, and we're just going to have this car wreck of a season where nobody gets to prove who they really are or are not. And at the end, I think everything's going to go. I think Steichen will go, and Ballard will go, and Jones will go, and AR will go, and we're going to start over. And so this year's a lost year, but then next year, the rebuild, it'll all be about excitement of what can be eventually. It's like Tennessee Titans right now with Cam Ward. They're like, hey, we're excited about what can be, but they're not going to be great this year. They just have this excitement, So for when we might be good again, who knows? Who even knows? But I do expect at the end of this year that there's going to be a massive change. Yeah, that's just my expectation as a Colts fan.
Unless Daniel Jones can like pull a rabbit out of his hat like he did in 2022, it is I don't think see that happening. And it's going to be them and the Titans at I think the bottom of the division.
So who's the very bottom in your mind?
If Anthony Richardson ends up starting more than half the games this season, despite what is going to happen at the start of the season, I think the Titans are at the bottom, and I think the Colts are a little bit more in contention with Richardson. But I'm also a guy that's very, very high on Anthony Richardson. If Daniel Jones starts more than half the games, I think I'm going to give the edge to the Tennessee Titans. I like Cam Ward, and I think he has a weapon in Calvin Ridley, and Tony Pollard was very underrated last year. But I don't see either of those teams separated too far by many games in either scenario. I think they split like the series between themselves. They each take the home game or something. And that's how it goes for the Colts and Titans this year.
So unless something happens and we're winning, I said, watch like 5 or 6 games in, we'll be like, 5-0, and I'll be like, what in the world? And you'll hear a different tune from me. I'll start to hope and probably be crushed anyway. But unless something happens like that, where one of our quarterbacks comes out and like does what they need to do, and the rest of the team rallies around them, if that happens, we probably won't have the full blow up at the end, but we'll just have to put that on reserve. Right now, I'm going to put the Colts at 3rd and put ourselves in purgatory with like another 5 to 8 wins, and then some other team will get like I think the Browns and Titans don't need a quarterback. The Browns, they don't know what they're doing with quarterback. We'll get to them later. Let's move on. AFC West. We did East, South, West. Let's go West. These 4 teams, man, who knows? I'm not gonna lie. One of my risers. Yeah, obviously we got the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And I think they're going to win that division. I'm just going to say it. Could they be pushed? They could be. But I always think, somebody's going to step up and push them. And then is it the Broncos? Is it the Chargers? I don't know. Is it the Raiders? I don't think so. But I do think the Raiders, I was getting ready to say, one team I think is rising here. I think it's going to be the Raiders. I think with Pete Carroll, with Geno Smith, with Max Crosby, with the Genty, their running back they got. I think they could, and with Pete Carroll being more of a motivator and like just the way, I think that franchise will rise. Do I think it will push the top people? No. I think it's going to come from the bottom where it's been up to the middle. Now, the question though is, will it get out of 4th place? Because which of these teams is not going to like put up some wins? I want to say, the Broncos, but I mean, the Broncos have been looking good with Bo Nix, as much as you hate him. Sean Payton there making that whole thing happen, and some people are really high on that team and everything around it. You got the Chargers, Harbaugh with Justin Herbert. and you keep thinking they're going to get it all together and push, but are they? And then Kansas City, well, surely they're going to fall off at some point, but have they? You know,
Yeah.
by the way, Travis Kelce and that girl, why can't I remember her name?
His girlfriend. Yeah.
What is her name?
His singer girlfriend. That's
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
So I was just going to say, they had their podcast and it was like over 100 million views, their first podcast. kind of like ours.
Well, we'll never get her now that we forgot her name.
Well, I don't think it's any secret that I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan. I don't think anybody would be surprised. And I think because of that, all of the Swifties would never listen to this podcast. But Travis Kelce has not looked as great. And I don't expect him to have like a huge bounce back from that. At some point, teams are going to start catching up to the Kansas City Chiefs. But what they have is they have Andy Reid and they have Patrick Mahomes. And as long as those two are together, it seems like magic happens. So I still expect they'll be on top. But what in the world is 2-3 going to look like? Can the Raiders get up in there? And if so, who's for? I'm throwing all this out as just a bunch of speculation because I will say I feel like the least kind of sureness about the ranking of this division of many of them.
I tend to agree. I think the Chiefs, like you said, are going to be number one. And I think their offense is going to be a little bit more fun to watch than it has been over the last 4 or 5 years where it's dink and dunk. And I think a big reason for that will be with Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy finally both healthy at the same time on the field. That gives you 2 vertical threats on either side of the field. And it really forces you to spread both of your safeties out and almost forces you into either playing cover 2 or cover 4, where your cornerbacks are also now playing well deep. And that's going to open up a lot for Rashee Rice when he gets back from his injury, when he gets back from whatever suspension. By the way, his hearing with the NFL for his suspension is going to be September 30th. So he's going to be able to play in some games before potentially getting suspended. But he's going to live in the middle of the field. He's going to live in that yards after catch spot. And Travis Kelce isn't the same speed or quickness guy, but he's still a guy that's going to body you out and get those catches in the middle of the field as well. And he's going to have a little bit more natural space to work with. And they also now have the time to hit those explosives if the safeties, miss their coverage, because Josh Simmons, who was my favorite left tackle and favorite offensive lineman in this draft, fell all the way to 32 because he suffered an injury, and most other NFL teams forgot that we have modern medicine today and that you can be healed from injuries. So they let him fall all the way to the Kansas City Chiefs at pick number, I think they moved up I think they moved down with the Eagles to pick 32. They just switched spots with one another. But he is healthy. He looks excellent in camp, according to all reports. And I think most of the draft experts had him as okay, if he wasn't injured, he would be my top offensive lineman. And I fall right into that same category. And I think the Chiefs just got the best offensive lineman. And they now are going to be able to more easily protect Patrick Mahomes and give him more time to hit Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown down the field.
Which is the hard part with Patrick Mahomes. As any offensive lineman, we always talk about their offensive line is not great. Well, part of that falls to Patrick Mahomes is totally creative. He'll hold the ball and run and jig and zag and zig and then throw it, in some weird angle to somebody you didn't expect. But all of that moving around makes it really hard on an offensive lineman to hold forever and ever and not know where your quarterback is. Is he going to be behind me? Is he going to be, off this way, off that way, up front of us? And so they have to have somebody with a lot of intelligence who plays till the whistle, because that's the way Patrick Mahomes plays as a quarterback.
Yeah, and I like the Broncos in all areas, but one, they're, I think Bo Nix will, I think he'll be the same guy that he was last year. And that is a guy that they're not going to put a whole lot of trust in to deliver deep down the ball fields, but they're going to give him single reads. They're going to give him or 1-2 reads. and a lot of screen passes. I think, threw the third most screens out of anybody last year. They ran the first most RPOs out of anybody last year. So, like, they're going to keep the offense simple for Bo Nix and stick to his strengths, which is those first read and fires, those quick reaction shots. And if they can do that and get the yards after catch like they did last year, like, his offensive line is the best pass blocking unit in the league. The defense might be the best unit in the league this year. So
Bo Nix, you have no faith that Sean Payton is going to grow him and teach him more about deep passes, Drew Brees style play.
I mean, he like, even the deep balls that he completes, it still doesn't look like pretty. And it's always to a receiver that's open. He's not threading the needle over the middle of the field, save for one play against the Cleveland Browns last year where he was able to beat a Tampa 2 pretty nicely. So, like, I mean, I think Sean Payton might give him the chance to do that. Like, that's kind of what they did at the beginning of the last season, and Bo Nix showed that, okay, I'm not up to it, so they put him back into this offense that was comfortable. But the offense that was comfortable worked, and that's what Sean Payton does. Is he will, like, when Drew Brees lost his arm for the final 6 years of his career, he didn't have like, I mean, he, like, obviously with the Chargers he had the stronger arm, then he had the injury, but he still had a strong arm with the Saints, or at least like a league average in terms of velocity and, or like, be able to deliver down the field. For most of his career, it kind of fell off a little bit at the end, but the Saints were still making playoff pushes because Sean Payton just recalibrated the offense. I think he can do that with Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix, if maybe he shows Sean Payton early on that he can take that next step, but I don't think he necessarily needs to in order for the Broncos to have success on offense with the offensive line that they have and with the weapons. And they might have a running game now with RJ Harvey. Although their offensive line, it's weird because their offensive line was the best pass protecting unit, like, bar none. But they were like 25th, 26th in going against the run. So, like, they can pass protect, they can't run protect. And we'll see if RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins can get something going there. But I think it's going to be enough to, get at least have the Broncos put some pressure on the Chiefs. Raiders, I like their offense. I don't like their defense. You can hide a lot of bad defense with cover 3, which Pete Carroll likes to run, so they might do that, but I don't think they have much of a defensive line outside of Max Crosby now that Christian Wilkins is gone. And you can now more easily double team Max Crosby. And the Chargers, I'm very worried that that their ceiling has been capped now at about 9 and 8, 10 and 7 because of Rashawn Slater and because their interior offensive line is not much better than it was last year. So I don't think Geno
Smith is going to give them a little better than
I think the Raiders are going to be very exciting on offense. And I think they will be good. I think their defense is going to be a bottom 10 unit in the NFL.
That's going to be their Achilles heel, huh?
Yes. Yep.
And then the Chargers?
Yeah, the Chargers, again, it's the Rashawn Slater injury that it just, like, it makes me very weary. They lost a lot of players on their defense, and, like, haven't reallocated a lot of that money to the defensive side of the football, mostly because, like, these are the years that Justin Herbert's contract extension is hitting the salary cap the hardest, so they really can't do a whole lot. It gets a little bit lighter in the next couple of years, but they kind of front loaded it a little bit. Like Herbert, I think he's a top 6, top 7 quarterback in the NFL and can get the job done even if the offensive line is getting him some more shoddy protection. But like, he wasn't able to against Houston. He threw 4 interceptions when the pressure was in his face against Houston last year. So we can see that he can be bad Herbert if the pressure comes. And that does worry me. He does have Keenan Allen back. So, like, those guys are, like, on the same wavelength in terms of like just pitch and catch. And then Ladd McConkey is a good option for them. I think they have a ceiling that is capped going into the 2025 season. I wouldn't expect them to be a Super Bowl contender. I would maybe a fringe playoff team, but I don't know. And that Rashawn Slater injury is just so big for them.
Yeah. Justin Herbert is one of those quarterbacks that I've always loved. And I always thought should somehow do better than he does. If he would have been on the Colts with what we have now, that would be great. I would love that. But alas, there with the Chargers, it has never turned into what I was always hoping it would. We'll see what happens this year. Let's move to the AFC North, though. AFC North. again, I'm going to give you my rundown, then you talk about what you, because you know a lot more about all the individual players. I see a very balanced team in this division that always does well. Do they always get the very top that I think they somehow should? No. I think they're still battling, the Bills a lot when it comes to that. Chiefs sometimes. That's the Ravens. They have such a balanced offense and defense and just good players in lots of spots. I feel like they're again going to win the North. I feel like when it comes to 2 and 3, I get a little confused because they're too. Okay, so let's just look at them. Steelers have always been good, and they got Mike Tomlin, who always kept them at least 500. They've got Aaron Rodgers. Some people are saying that's going to make a difference. Some people are saying that's going to be their downfall. I don't know what to make of that team, to be honest. And then you got the Bengals, who have like this explosive offense always and this horrid defense. And they have not really changed that this year. They still have this big offense with all the pieces signed in there. And their defense still is not striking me. And Trey Hendrickson?
Hendrickson, yeah.
Hendrickson. Put the two together, Matthew. Holding out, holding in, whatever he's doing, doesn't bode well, even for what they've had in the past. So like their offense alone could put them up over where the Steelers are going to end up, or the Steelers may end up better than I expect with Aaron Rodgers, may do better than he did in New York. I just don't know what to make of that team. So I don't know quite how to place those two, but I do feel pretty solid in saying I think the first will be the Ravens and the last will be the Browns. The Browns, they're just a hot mess, and I don't care. Joe Flacco was not inspiring with the Colts, and I know he came in and led them to the playoffs that one year, and everybody's like, Joe Flacco, Joe. I don't think Joe Flacco is going to get it done. Their quarterback room is a mess. Their defense is good, but what in the world have they got for offense? So I think 1, Baltimore, 2, 3, not real sure. I think the Steelers are going to come in over the Bengals, but that's only because the Bengals' bad defense. I think the Bengals have a really good offense. I could go either way there, but last, Browns. What do you think, Josh?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Browns have the quarterback room has only gotten more crowded since we last spoke, and that is because they brought in Snoop Huntley, Pro Bowl quarterback Snoop Tyler Huntley. So they have now 3. They have, if you count Deshaun Watson on injured reserve, they have 3 Pro Bowl quarterbacks with Huntley, with Joe Flacco, with Deshaun Watson. They have 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, who was the backup on the Eagles last year.
They have the one rookie who got more headlines for coming in as a 5th round pick?
Yeah.
6th round?
They got
5th round? I can't even remember.
They got a 5th rounder in Shedeur Sanders, who I think is, for me, if I'm the Browns, he's going to probably start the back half of the season for me, because Dylan Gabriel, uninspiring. Kenny Pickett, uninspiring. Joe Flacco, old. Deshaun Watson, you don't want anywhere near this team. Maybe
exactly my thoughts. I'm surprised they're not starting Shedeur Sanders, to be honest. But they're going with the safe pick, Joe Flacco.
And could I see them adding a 7th quarterback to this room? Not to have 7 quarterbacks on the active roster. I could see him getting Kirk Cousins and making a trade for Kirk Cousins. If I don't think that's completely out of the realm of possibility. And just for the, he worked with Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota, and that's when Kirk was at his best, was when he had Kevin Stefanski as his offensive coordinator. So maybe those two just jive well together.
I'm just going to say, if they do that, they would be the laughing stock of the NFL. Just the number of quarterbacks they're collecting.
It would be completely ridiculous. They have plenty of backups that they can send to Atlanta. If Atlanta wants a cheaper backup, they can just send Kenny Pickett along with a 2nd or 3rd round pick or whatever it is. And they also have the capital, since they traded down out of the Travis Hunter spot and have a lot more draft picks. So if they really want Kirk Cousins, they can make it happen. If they really want Anthony Richardson and he really wants to be out of Indianapolis, they can make it happen. They could trade for one of these quarterbacks.
I'll take Myles Garrett.
Yeah, right. But the offense is going to be bad. The Browns are probably the worst team in the AFC, and We also got the I think that the Bengals are going to be a little bit better than last year, maybe, but it all depends on if Shamar Stewart is able to be an effective player. Like his thing at Texas A&M was he has all the tools. He just hasn't put together like a good mix of pass rush moves yet. He has one or two that he can use, but he doesn't have a lot of counters to that. If he learns how to counter and can, work to the inside as much as he can work to the outside, like he's going to be an effective player for them. And if you line him up opposite of Trey Hendrickson, okay, now we're working a little bit differently here, and it might look a little bit better. I don't know if that's going to happen in year one, especially since Shamar Stewart was doing the holdout because the Browns, for whatever reason, didn't want to guarantee him like all of the money that first round picks typically get. But in any case, I think that it is going to not be like Super Bowl for Cincinnati. I think even if that defense even if Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson are both on the field playing well, I still think like you're hoping to at least get into the playoffs. And then, I mean, like you said, the Ravens, very, very upper echelon of not only this division, but also this conference and the league. The Steelers.
What about the Steelers? Yeah, you haven't.
The Steelers, very good defensive players. The one issue with the defensive players is that they're all 30 plus. And like, if they start to break down, like a good, reliable Honda Accord is eventually going to fall apart, like even after 300,000 miles. And they might have 300,000 miles on this defense. And pretty soon you're, replacing the alternator. And then once you finally gotten that replaced, then
the starter goes. And then
the starter goes. Those are like the only car parts that I know. So I can't continue on further with that metaphor. So there's that. And then Aaron Rodgers, like it reminds me like a conversation that I'm sure Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith had reminds me of one that I would have seen in Arrested Development, where one of the characters, Tobias, and his wife are talking about ways that they can save their marriage that is like falling apart and the spark's not there. And Tobias, who's a therapist, is giving some like options of things that he's like given to his clients to kind of work and make their marriage better. None of them are going to work. And his wife asked, wait, did it work for any of them? And he said, oh, of course not. They just delude themselves into thinking that they might be the exception. And then he pats his head, but then he looks over to her and says, but it might work for us. So that is
that is such an apt description.
That is what is going on with the Steelers. I think at most you have two playoff teams. I think the Ravens are a shoo-in and maybe the Bengals.
And I hear maybe Aaron Rodgers is a never nude.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I didn't actually hear that. Do not try and quote that anybody. That's has nothing to do with this.
But he probably has an AI wife.
At least when he's on shrooms. So Aaron Rodgers came in. We don't know what this is going to mean for them. Will it bring them up? Will it bring them down? Who can even say with Aaron Rodgers anymore? So it's going to be interesting to watch the Steelers this year, at least in the beginning, to see what do we got. Now, we agree. Baltimore there, Browns the worst there. Let's look at, we've gone through each of the divisions real quick. Let's just talk top 3 teams or 4, bottom 3 teams or 4 in the whole AFC. Okay. So top, I'll let you start this time because I always start.
Top 1, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens.
Ravens over Chiefs and Bills even.
Yes, I like what they have. And I mean, like DeAndre Hopkins, he's not what he used to be, but he gives you like a solid floor for a number 3 receiver and can still run routes like anybody else. And like the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, I expect that to keep working. Number 2, I am going to go with the Chiefs. I think their offense becomes more explosive, more fun to watch. And their defense has always been good, and they're going to have Steve Spagnuolo leading it until the end of time. And then number 3, I really want to go with the Buffalo Bills, but I don't trust their defense enough. I like their offense. I'm not sure what their defense can do. I'm going to go with either the Houston Texans or Jacksonville Jaguars, whichever one of those wins the AFC South. Oh, no, never mind. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. I think the Denver Broncos would be number 3.
Oh, that's even more of a wow. That's your Bo Nix hate team.
And I don't think it's going to be because of. I think it's mostly.
But see,
again,
here's the
because
thing:
of the trend.
they're going to be a wild card if Kansas City wins theirs. So
Yes,
you probably have to go with a different team as number 3 overall.
That's true. I think they'll be
Seeding
the
wise,
third.
anyway.
I think they'll be the third best team in the conference, but weirdly, I don't think they have any shot of getting to the Super Bowl. So so I'll go with the Houston Texans, and I'll go giving them the edge in the AFC South. And just because of what they have on defense, I know their offensive line is going to be a sieve this season, but I trust CJ Stroud, and they never adjusted their protections last year either. It was just like running man blocking schemes in pass protection, and they hardly ever brought any extra pass protection. So they were hardly sliding the line over to the left or sliding it right, depending on where the pressure was coming. So they have a new offensive coordinator, and maybe he fixes those issues. So I'll go with the Houston Texans as number 3.
Okay. And by the way, we are just talking about like best records regular season. So you could have put the Broncos there at 3 if you really felt that. Because when we get to the bottom 3, it doesn't matter, what division you come from, who's the bottom 3. So I would agree on Baltimore Ravens, and it's really hard for me to ever say anything good about the Kansas City Chiefs. I just hate them so much. But I also grudgingly realize they're always in that conversation. But I will put them and then the Bills, or the Bills and then them. I can't decide. I am keeping the Bills there. And it's only because Josh Allen. It's only because of Josh Allen. And I feel like he will just push as hard as he needs to keep them in games that they're I think they're going to have some high scoring games. I just don't see the Texans yet overtaking them. Texans, I think, are strong for their division. I don't think they're that high yet for the whole AFC. What about your bottom 3, bottom 4, somewhere around in there?
The Browns at the very, very bottom, they've hit the floor and then they kept digging, and they are now in the Mariana Trench. Everything else is at least sea level for the next 2. So those 2 are going to be the Miami Dolphins. Again, there's a wide range of outcomes that I have for the Miami Dolphins. I expect more of it to be on the way lesser side. And I will go. I think the Titans and Colts are both going to be good enough to be not in that bottom 3 conversation.
Wow.
And I like the Raiders offense, but I don't like it enough to prevent their defense from failing them a lot this season. So I will go with the Raiders.
Oh, we have a faithful listener named Ezra who is a Raiders fan. And so this one's for you, Ezra.
I think they'll be fun to watch. I think the Raiders will be fun to watch. And they were like a team at the beginning of the offseason, and especially after the draft, I was like, I can really see this becoming a team that makes the leap for the playoffs. But once Christian Wilkins got cut from the team and I started looking, I was like, okay, wait, who's going to replace him? And then I looked at how not deep the defensive line really is. That is kind of like the trenches. I think if you win in the trenches, you can be average everywhere else and still be a playoff team. And I don't think they're going to win in the trenches on defense. And they don't have much anywhere else on the defensive side of the football. So I think it's going to be a bad defense. And I think that's going to doom them for the 2025 season, at least until they can start putting a little bit more together next year.
Okay. So you said Browns, Dolphins, Raiders. I agree a little bit. Browns, I think, will be the worst. And I don't know what they're going to do when they get the first overall pick. Are they going to get another quarterback and just get rid of all those quarterbacks they got? Maybe. Then I do think it's tough for me on that second one. It's tough for me on the next 3. But I do believe Dolphins, Titans, and Colts are going to be in that conversation. And you're like, what, Matthew, with the Colts? Unfortunately, I think the Colts aren't going to be in that conversation. I think the Raiders are going to be better than the Colts this year, or equal to the Colts. If we do our best and they don't do great, I think we're going to be equal. I feel like the Titans, although they have some stuff they're starting to kind of get together, I don't think they're going to be seeing those in wins yet. I think they're going to be still figuring stuff out. They're going to see glimpses of like, hey, this is where we're going, but it's not going to translate to wins yet. So I think they're going to be the second worst team. And then, I have no idea where the Colts and Dolphins are going to fall. I think the Dolphins are probably going to be worse. Colts are probably going to be number 4, be up just high enough. Maybe even number 5 I think we're not going to be where we need to be to draft something good. And we're not going to be where we need to be to make any difference. I think we're just going to be that middle of the pack. So I think I said Browns, Titans, and Miami. Kind of my 3, because I don't yet believe that things have changed enough for the Titans to see that kind of win jump yet.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you've heard our thoughts here in the AFC. You can tell us what you think of the AFC, but we're going to be coming back next week to talk about the NFC, that side. And I think this is one of those where it used to be for years, AFC was just super strong. And you're like, man, all these AFC teams are so great. There's no NFC teams. I think we're starting to see some NFC teams kind of moving up the leaderboards again, and we're starting to see some good teams over there. So it's going to be an exciting one to talk about next week. And I think that'll do it for us today. Anything else before we leave, Josh?
Well, no, I got nothing else except hopefully the Vikings have Tyreek Hill or Adam Thielen by the next time we speak.
So we all hope our team gets better somehow in this last week before things become real. But that's going to do it for us today here in the Football Fandemics. Don't forget to join us next week when we talk about the NFC and that whole conference. See you guys then.